The scent and smoke and sweat of a casino are nauseating at 3 in the morning. James Bond suddenly knew that he was tired. He always acted on this knowledge. It helped him to avoid staleness and the sensual bluntness that breeds mistakes. He shifted himself unobtrusively away from the roulette he had been playing and went to stand for a moment at the brass rail which surrounded the top table in the salle privée. Le Chiffre was still playing, and still, apparently, winning. In the shadow of his thick left arm there nestled a discreet stack of big yellow plaques worth 500,000 francs each. Bond watched the curious, impressive profile for a time, and then he shrugged his shoulders to lighten his thoughts and moved away. He imagined tomorrow's regular morning meeting of the casino committee. Monsieur Le Chiffre made 2 million. He played his usual game. Miss Fairchild made 1 million in an hour and then left. She played with coolness. Monsieur le Vicomte de Villerin made 1 million too at roulette. He was lucky. Then the Englishman, Mr. Bond, increased his winnings to exactly 3 million over the 2 days. It seems that he is persevering, and he has luck. Merci, Monsieur Xavier. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Or something like that, thought Bond, as he pushed his way through the swing doors of the salle privée and nodded to the bored man in evening clothes, whose job it is to bar your entry and your exit with the electric foot switch which can lock the doors at any hint of trouble. He breathed the sweet night air deeply and focused his senses and his wits. He wanted to know if anyone had searched his room since he had left it before dinner. He walked across the broad boulevard and through the gardens to the Hotel Splendide. He smiled at the concierge who gave him his key, number 45 on the first floor, and took the cable from her. It was from Jamaica, and read, Bond, Splendide, Royale les Eaux. Inferior Havana cigar production, all Cuban factories. 10 million. Repeat, 10 million. Stop. Hope this figure you require. Regards. Da Silva. This meant that 10 million francs was on the way to him. It was the reply to a request Bond had sent that afternoon through Paris to his headquarters in London, asking for more funds. Clements, the head of Bond's department, had spoken to M, who had smiled wryly and told the broker to fix it with the Treasury. Bond took his key and said good night, and turned to the stairs, shaking his head at the liftman. Bond knew what an obliging danger signal a lift could be. He didn't expect anyone to be moving on the first floor, but he preferred to be prudent. Walking quietly up on the balls of his feet, he turned off the stairs into the corridor and walked softly to the door of his room. Bond knew exactly where the switch was, and it was with one flow of motion that he stood on the threshold with the door full open, the light on, and a gun in his hand. The safe, empty room sneered at him. Locking himself in, he bent down and inspected one of his own black hairs, which still lay undisturbed where he had left it before dinner, wedged into the drawer of the writing desk. Next, he examined a faint trace of talcum powder on the inner rim of the porcelain handle of the clothes cupboard. It appeared immaculate. He went into the bathroom, lifted the cover of the lavatory cistern, and verified the level of the water against a small scratch on the copper ballcock. Doing all this, inspecting these minute burglar alarms, did not make him feel foolish or self-conscious. He was a secret agent, and still alive thanks to his exact attention to the detail of his profession. Satisfied that his room had not been searched while he was at the casino, Bond undressed and took a cold shower. Then he lit his 70th cigarette of the day and sat down at the writing table with the thick wad of his stake money and winnings beside him, and entered some figures in a small notebook. Over the 2 days' play, he was up exactly 3 million francs. For a few moments, Bond sat motionless, gazing out of the window across the dark sea. Then he shoved the bundle of banknotes under the pillow of the ornate single bed, cleaned his teeth, turned out the lights, and climbed with relief between the harsh French sheets. His last action was to slip his right hand under the pillow until it rested under the butt of the .38 Colt Police Positive with the sawn barrel. Then he slept, and with the warmth and humour of his eyes extinguished, his features relapsed into a taciturn mask, ironical, brutal, and cold. 2 weeks before, this memorandum had gone from Station S of the Secret Service to M, who was then, and is today, head of this adjunct to the British Defence Ministries. To M, from head of S. Subject: a project for the destruction of Monsieur Le Chiffre, alias the Number, Herr Nummer, Herr Ziffer, etc., one of the opposition's chief agents in France and undercover paymaster of the Syndicat des Ouvriers d'Alsace, the communist-controlled trade union in the heavy and transport industries of Alsace, and, as we know, an important fifth column in the event of war with Redland. We have been feeling for some time that Le Chiffre is getting into deep water. It seems that he is on the brink of a financial crisis. Certain straws in the wind were noticed by Agent 1860, some discreet sales of jewellery, the disposal of a villa at Antibes, and a general tendency to check the loose spending, which has always been a feature of his way of life. Further inquiries were made with the help of our friends of the 12e Bureau, with whom we have been working jointly on this case, and a curious story has come to light. In January 1946, Le Chiffre bought control of a chain of brothels, known as the Cordon Jaune, operating in Normandy and Brittany. He was foolish enough to employ for this purpose some 50 million francs of the moneys entrusted to him by Leningrad Section 3 for the financing of SODA, the trade union mentioned above. Barely 3 months later, on the 13th of April, there was passed in France Law No. 46685, known popularly as La Loi Marthe Richard, closing all houses of ill fame and forbidding the sale of pornographic books and films. This knocked the bottom out of his investment almost overnight. Suddenly, Le Chiffre was faced with a serious deficit in his union funds. Today, nothing remains of Le Chiffre's original investment, and any routine inquiry would reveal a deficit of around 50 million francs in the trade union funds, of which he is the treasurer and paymaster. It does not seem that the suspicions of Leningrad have been aroused yet, but, unfortunately for Le Chiffre, it is possible that at any rate Smersh is on the scent. Last week, a high-grade source of Station P reported that a senior official of this efficient organ of Soviet vengeance had left Warsaw for Strasbourg via the eastern sector of Berlin. If Le Chiffre knew that Smersh was on his tail, or that they had the smallest suspicion of him, he would have no alternative but to commit suicide or attempt to escape. But his present plan suggests that while he is certainly desperate, he does not yet realize that his life may be at stake. It is these rather spectacular plans of his that have suggested to us a counter-operation which, though risky and unconventional, we submit at the end of this memorandum with confidence. In brief, Le Chiffre plans, we believe, to follow the example of most other desperate till robbers and make good the deficit in his accounts by gambling. We know that he has taken a small villa in the neighbourhood of Royale-les-Eaux, just north of Dieppe, for a week from a fortnight tomorrow. It is here that Le Chiffre will, we are confident, endeavour on or after the 15th of June to make a profit at Baccarat of 50 million francs on a working capital of 25 million, and, incidentally, save his life. A proposed counter-operation. It will be greatly in the interests of this country and of the other nations of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization that this powerful Soviet agent should be ridiculed and destroyed, that his communist trade union should be bankrupted and brought into disrepute, and that this potential fifth column, with a strength of 50,000, capable in time of war of controlling a wide sector of France's northern frontier, should lose faith and cohesion. All this would result if Le Chiffre could be defeated at the tables. N.B. Assassination is pointless. Leningrad would quickly cover up his defalcations and make him into a martyr. We therefore recommend that the finest gambler available to the service should be given the necessary funds and endeavour to out-gamble this man. Signed, S. Head of S, the section of the Secret Service concerned with the Soviet Union, was so keen on his plan for the destruction of Le Chiffre that he took the memorandum himself and went up to the top floor of the gloomy building overlooking Regent's Park. He walked belligerently up to M's Chief of Staff. "Now look here, Bill, I want to sell something to the Chief. Is this a good moment?" "What do you think, Penny?" The Chief of Staff turned to M's private secretary, who shared the room with him. Miss Moneypenny would have been desirable, but for eyes which were cool and direct and quizzical. "Should be all right. He won a bit of a victory at the FO this morning, and he's not got anyone for the next half an hour." She smiled encouragingly at Head of S. The Chief of Staff crossed his office, docket in hand, and went through the double doors leading into M's room. In a moment he came out, and over the entrance a small blue light burned the warning that M was not to be disturbed. James Bond's interview with M had been short. "What about it, Bond?" Bond looked across the desk into the shrewd, clear eyes. "It's very kind of you, sir. I'd like to do it. But I can't promise to win. The odds at Baccarat are the best after 30 et 40, but I might get a bad run against me and get cleaned out. Play's going to be pretty high. Opening will go up to 500,000, I should think." Bond was stopped by the cold eyes. M knew all this already. That was his job, knowing the odds at everything, and knowing men, his own and the opposition's. Bond wished he had kept quiet about his misgivings. "He can have a bad run too," said M. "You'll have plenty of capital, up to 25 million, the same as him." He smiled. "Go over a few days before the big game starts and get your hand in. I'm going to ask the 12e to stand by. I'll try to persuade them to send Matisse. You seem to get on well with him in Monte Carlo on that other casino job. And I'm going to tell Washington. Anything else?" Bond shook his head. "I'd certainly like to have Matisse, sir." "Well, we'll see. Try and bring it off. We're going to look pretty foolish if you don't. And watch out. This sounds an amusing job, but I don't think it's going to be. Well, best of luck." "Thank you, sir," said Bond, and went to the door. "Just a minute." Bond turned. "I think I'll keep you covered, Bond. 2 heads are better than 1. They'll get in touch with you at Royale. You needn't worry. It'll be someone good." Bond would have preferred to work alone, but one didn't argue with M. He left the room, hoping that the man they sent would be loyal to him, and neither stupid nor, worse still, ambitious.